Alright guys, I'm back for another video. We're still working on our multiplayer game. I think if we play this scene, you'll see that we have two jets. Perfect. And we also gave player 1 control over this one, which was our host. And player 2 is our client, and he has control over this jet. Alright, well, I was trying to help you guys get this set up in class. We ran into quite a few problems, which we are going to fix today and right now. The major problem we were having was we had students forgetting to type a name or forgetting to type an IP address or clicking the join button and then the host button. Let's see what happens whenever you do those things and why is it happening. So let's assume that the person tries to play with another player and they accidentally click the join button and they realize, oh, I didn't mean to click that. I meant to click host, and then they click host. Let's see what happens in the code. If you click the join button, it's going to automatically store your name as the client. And then it's going to set up the network and it's going to try to join somebody. But if you don't connect with someone, it doesn't take you anywhere because this function never fires. So then you immediately hit the host button. And now the client's name is still stored. So then it's going to store a host. So now on your computer, you have both a client name and a host name. Hopefully you can see where the problem's going here. Then this check is going to get messed up on both computers, and we're just going to start having all types of unintended consequences. So what we're going to do in today's video is we're going to set up a series of checks and balances that will help us not make these mistakes. And really, this is what coding is all about. We want to create a program that works, and it works to a degree that someone can't break your code by doing something that was unintended. So we're going to try to remove some unintended consequences that are in this code. All right, so let's start off with something simple. Let's add some instructions. So I'm going to add a label here, and I'm going to say warning. I'm calling this a warning label. My warning label, I'm going to just start it off by saying you must enter a name. Let's go. All right, and I'm going to align this center, and I'm even going to give this a color. So custom fonts, and I'm going to change, not custom fonts, custom colors. I want the color to be red. There it is. Now I'm going to move this all the way up to the top. Move up, move up, move up, move up. One more time. So there it is. This says you must enter a name. Now when I play the scene, you see you must enter a name immediately. Now I don't actually want to tell them you must enter a name until they try to do it without entering a name. I don't want to punish somebody who might already know what to do. So I want to hide this at the beginning. So let's go to the lobby script here. And let's get access to this warning label. So I'm going to say on ready var warning is equal to get node. And the node we want to get a hold of is that new warning label. At the start, the ready function fires, and I'm going to assume the person didn't make a mistake, so I'm going to say warning dot visible is equal to false. So now when I play this, the warning label is not visible. They didn't make any mistakes, so they don't need to see that. Now let's assume that they are gonna let's make sure that they don't make a mistake. So let's go to the join button. When they push the join button, we need to make sure that they actually put in a name. So I'm going to say if, where would they put their name? They would put it in player name. So I'll say if player name is equal to empty, that means they did not put a name in, then we want to turn on this warning label. So let's grab the warning label and put it here and turn it on by saying true. If they don't have a name, we want to turn on the warning label and not let them get to the code. So I'll say else and I'll tab all of these lines of code over. So this says, if they don't have a name, give them this warning, skip over this. If they do have a name, then you will just go continue about your business like it would normally. So let's test it out. We'll hit play. I'm not going to put a name in. I'm going to hit join. Oops, I got an error. Let's see what player name dot text. I'm glad that we saw that error. So player name, that's just the node. If I don't actually grab the text, it's not going to allow me to make this check. Here, let me show you in a more detail. Okay, so if I click on player name, I want to know the text, which is right there. Text or alignment or max length. I want to know what did they put in this box, which would be text. Player name gets access to all of these, and if I don't specify, it's not going to let me make a differentiation there. So I'm going to say player name dot text. All right, this is going to work now. All right, let's run it again. I'm going to hit join, and there it is. You must enter a name. If I click and put a name in there and I hit join, you'll see that it tries to connect. Let's go. Okay, next thing we want to do here is we're going to add this same check to the host button. So I'm going to move this down. I'll grab these three things because it's going to be identical. Paste that in and tab this section over. That's the exact same check. I don't have to demonstrate that. It's going to work. All right, next one. You could also not put in a host IP. That would also be a problem. Well, which one would that be a problem for? Would that be a problem for hosting, or would that be a problem for joining? Be a problem for joining. So we need to make this check on joining. So I'm going to say elif, and then this time I want to check host IP and make sure it's not empty. So I'll say host underscore IP. And like the mistake I made last time, I want to make sure I put text in there is equal to empty. If it's equal to empty, I want to turn my warning back on. All right. So one problem here, my warning currently says you must enter a name. That does not make sense if you did not put in an IP. So I'm going to also change what the warning label says. I'm going to say warning.text is equal to, and I'm going to say please enter an IP. Okay, now right here I changed how the text was written in this manner, and right now it currently does work because I set the label text here, but I'm gonna set it up. I'll leave that there, but I'm gonna also set the text in the other two spots as well, just to be consistent. So right here, I'm also going to give this the warning text. So I'm gonna say warning.text is equal to you must enter a name. And then I will copy this part, and I also want to put it here with the host button pressed. Okay, now if they've clicked the correct, if they have a name and they have a host IP, I don't need the warning. They know what they're doing and they did it correctly. So I'm going to hide the warning if they get it correct. So there we go. Hide the warning if it gets correct. Hide the warning if they get the host button correct as well. So looking at this again, it says if the person pushes the join button and they don't have a name, tell them you must enter a name. If they put a name in, or if they push the join button and they have a name, skip it and check to see do they have a host IP. If they don't have a host IP, then you're going to turn on the warning and put these words on there. If both of these are not true, then we go to this part, which basically says, let's join the game, and we don't need any warnings. Thank you very much. So let's give this a shot. I will click join. You must enter a name. Host, you must enter a name. When you put a name there, hey, you didn't enter an IP. I put an IP here. The warning should go away, and it should try to join. Boom, it did. And perfect. Now, one issue with this, we can still click the join and then the host button, assuming that we put a name here and an IP here. We could click host, or we could click join. It could try to connect, and then we could try to click host, and we still have that same problem where we both have a host name and a client name. Let's make that not possible. All right, so what we're going to do is when somebody clicks the button, we want to hide the opposite button. So let's assume they did everything correct. We're going to hide the other button. So if they click the join button, we no longer need the host button. So I'm going to say host button dot visible is equal to false. So now they can't even see that button. Likewise, I'm going to do the same thing here with the join button. So I'm going to say join button dot visible equals false. All right. Now if I play this, if I click the join button, it tries to join a place, and it's going to hide the host button. I can't make a mistake of clicking the host button too. Now this leaves us with an issue. Let's say you tried to join somebody else's game, it failed, and you're like, I'll be the host. Well, you no longer have access to the host button, which is what you wanted. However, that's inconvenient. If somebody wanted to try to host a game now, they'd have to close the game, reopen it, and then click host. We're gonna make a button that allows us to refresh the screen. So let's go to the lobby here, and we need another button, and we're gonna call this the refresh button. I'm gonna click on join, and I'm gonna duplicate this button because I want it to keep all of the text settings and the size flags, all that good stuff. I'm going to rename this from join to refresh, like so. And then on the right hand side, I'm going to change join to refresh, like so. Now we have a wonderful refresh button. I'm going to go to my script, and in my script of my lobby scene, which is where I'm at again, I need to grab access to this refresh button. So let's get access to it. Now you'll notice I have my buttons, both of them right here side by side. I'm going to go ahead and keep with that, and I'm going to put my refresh button right next to it. On ready, var refresh button. Hopefully I spelled that right. Refresh button equals get underscore node, and the node we want to get is our new refresh button. So there it is. We got access to the button now. We do not need to see the button at the very beginning, so let's hide it. So we'll say refresh button dot visible is equal to false. So when you first start up this program, you will not see the refresh button. Perfect. When do we want to see the refresh button? Well, we want to see the refresh button whenever we hide one of the other buttons. So whenever we click the join button and it hides the host button, we want to bring up the refresh button. Likewise, we're going to want to do the same. If we click the host button and hide the join button, we want the refresh button to appear. This is what this is going to look like. I click the join button, and now the host button seemingly changes to a refresh button. The refresh button doesn't do anything right now, so let's wire it up. At the top, we have access to it, and we have a join button function, we have a host button function, we have a player connected function. We do not have a refresh button function, so let's make a refresh button function. Refresh button pressed. Okay, so when this function fires, we're doing something really simple. We just want to say, hey, the refresh button was pressed. All right, so let's connect our button to this simple refresh button. Now, I'm going to grab this part here. I'm going to copy it because I don't want to spell it wrong. I want to make sure I spell it right. So like with the other buttons, we declared the button, we connected it to a function. So we need to do the same with our refresh button. So I'll say refresh button dot connect, and we want to connect the pressed function, and we want to connect it to ourself, and we want to connect it to the function down there at the bottom, which I just pasted in. All right, now anytime we press that button, it's going to come down here to the refresh button pressed, and it's going to play this code right there, which just says we pressed the refresh button. The way we're going to make this refresh button work is we just want to make the refresh button set everything back to normal. So let's do that. Normal settings would be warning, label, visible. The warning would be not visible. The refresh button would not be visible. So I'm going to grab these two lines. I'm going to copy both of those, and I'm going to put them down here. So both those buttons should not be visible. However, the join button should be visible, and so should the host button. Both those buttons should be visible. If you pushed one of those buttons, it also would have given you a host name and a host ID, or a client name or a client ID. So let's go ahead and set both of those back to normal, which would be empty. So host name would be empty, and host ID would be empty. And if you remember, empty for the host ID was -1. We also want to set the client name to empty, like so. And we want to set the client ID to empty, which was -1. All right. Also, when we get on this screen, our player name box and our host IP box, those should also be empty with nothing in them. So we'll say player name.text is empty, and host IP dot text, I want that empty as well. I think that's everything. The only other thing that we could set back to default would be these network settings stuff, and I'm not gonna worry about messing with those. I guess you could just reset this var net to nothing. That would be pretty simple. I'm not gonna worry about it. Anytime you click it, it's gonna reset it anyway. If it becomes a problem, I'll deal with it later, I suppose. All right, let's give all these functions a shot, see if they work. So I am here. If I click join with no name, it's going to say you must enter a name. If I put a name in and click join again, it's going to say please enter an IP. If I put an IP, click join, it's going to change this button to refresh. If I click refresh, it's going to set everything back to 0 or back to the normal mode. If I click host, it'll also do the exact same thing there. Now the refresh button is there. I can click refresh, and I'm ready to try to join another game. Alright, I know that video was kind of long, and these videos have been pretty code heavy. Hopefully you guys are following along, learning something. This is a great thing that we're working on, and I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video.